The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus put before the crowds a parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slave said to him, "Then do you want us to go and gather them?" But he replied, "No, for in gathering the weeds, you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn." Jesus put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of seeds, but when it has grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed in with 3 measures of flour until all of it was leavened. The Gospel of the Lord. I've mentioned before my religion teacher from grade 2, Sister John Dominic. She was a wonderful Dominican nun. And I still remember very clearly, she told us one day that if you were not Catholic, you were going to hell. And I said, "But sister, our next door neighbors are Lutheran, and they're real good people." And she said, "It doesn't matter. They're going to hell if they're not Catholic." And I remember I came home and cried, and my mom said, "Don't worry about it. God will take care of them." My mother was very wise. And Sister John Dominic was a wonderful lady who I got to know in her later years. She was also a wonderful woman. But it was very easy. We loved to be the in-group because as much as I didn't want something bad to happen to those next-door neighbors of ours who were really like family, I always felt a real pride in knowing that I, as Catholic, was in the right and everybody else was in the wrong. It's nice to have an enemy. Clear-cut, we're good, they're bad. I remember reading an article a few years back that said when communism was the thing, Soviet communism, the Catholic Church was very united. Yes, there were always more progressive and more traditional within the church, but we didn't fight each other. We fought the enemy, godless communism. But once communism disappeared, all of a sudden, those traditionalists, they want this and that, that's horrible. Or those progressives, they don't know what they're talking about. They've warped all of the traditional teachings. And it's so easy to say, they are not like us. What about maybe the terrorists? They're terrible. Or what about the Black Lives Matter, the ones that are burning or destroying statues and painting? We've just got to get rid of them and everything will be okay. And Jesus turns that on its head. And he says, let the weeds and the wheat grow together. God will take care of it at harvest time. And in fact, not only does Jesus say that He pulls out some of the wheat if you pull the weeds, but He even says that the weeds, when they're collected at the end, will be bundled and then burned. As He says, they'll become fuel. So the weeds even become something useful in God's eyes. It's really quite amazing when you think about it. When I joined Christian peacemaker teams and ended up serving on team in Hebron, which is a 100% Muslim city, I was amazed at some of the people I met and of their goodness and of their generosity. And I would have never dreamt of it because of all I had heard about Islam and Muslims. And so many other examples we could think of. But in fact, if you go all the way back to the book of Genesis and the creation story, following the creation story, the first sin, do you remember what it is? Adam and Eve ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They thought they would know who was in the right and who was in the wrong. And yes, I know we all need to learn right from wrong and how we're raised and we have ways to conduct ourselves in society. And yet when we start to go to other people and say, you're bad, you're good, that's God's work, not mine, not yours. So for me, that's a real challenge that comes from today's parable, because it flies in the face of everything I want to do. I want everything nice and neat and clean. I want all the answers kind of right there before me. It's all done. And Jesus says, it's not that simple. God can take anything and use it for life.